Hello, if you're watching, it's because you are needing to hear something, or because you know me and you're just curious about what I have to say. So, either way, hello, hello. My name is Caitlin Coulter. If you're watching this in a few months from now, my name will be Caitlin Heiss, which is really weird to say. But what I am presenting to you right now is my testimony. Now, most people give a testimony and it's like, when I was 5, I breathed the wrong way and it hurt. Or like something like that or whatever. I'm not here to give you gloom and doom. I'm here to give you hope. Because that's what Christ's given us, a hope and a future. So if I offended anyone with my previous comment, please forgive me, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, I guess my testimony starts with a regular testimony, you know? For most Christians, you grew up in a Christian home, and it was just what you did. See, I always loved Christ. I never stopped loving him. I would find colors put together and somehow make it about Jesus. I made everything about Jesus. I grew up and I watched Jesus movies all the time. There was one in particular that I remember, some rendition of the story of Jesus that was done, I think in the I don't know, maybe the 80s or 90s or whatever. I would watch that constantly. I watched Jesus Christ Superstar religiously, and I went to church camp and everything like that. And that's just who I am. Jesus was just part of my life. Now, there is bad things that happened in my life. Life would not be complete without that, because there is sin in the world. Know this. If there is bad things in your life, it is not because God is evil. It's because sin happened. Okay? So please know the difference. It is not God's fault that when I was 7 years old, my dad was diagnosed with cancer. Stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Please know that it is not God's fault that we were almost evicted when I was 8 years old. No, I was still 7. I was still 7. Please know it was not God's fault that we went hungry when I was 8 years old. Please know that. Because there is sin out there. And sin does a lot of bad things. It destroys things. It takes what's good away. And God's the perfect Father. No perfect father is going to be like, here, I'm going to do this to you. Ha. No, that's not it. It happens because partially we have free will. So sometimes our consequences have action. Our actions have consequences. If you choose to go out driving and you're drunk and something happens, you have the free will choice. Sometimes things happen. But it's not because God's like, let me plan something for you because it's funny to me. Ha ha ha. That's not who God is. He's the perfect Father. And I don't think most people understand what that means, and I won't get too into it, but I do not blame God for what happened. Because Romans 8:28 says all things work together for our good to those who love and know God. So keeping that in mind, that things did come together to work for our good. In 2005, my sister was adopted from Russia. This is a very crucial piece because she is a big part of my testimony, I think more than I care to admit sometimes. Because, we went through so much because of, my dad's sickness when I was so little. I'm the oldest, okay? I'm the oldest of 4 girls. And, I remember us shaving my dad's hair off. I have a very distinct memory about that. I remember going to the hospital with him when he would get radiation and chemo done. I'd build puzzles with the older people. I remember being there. It was Wednesday nights, every Wednesday night that we would go. Sometimes we had to miss Awana, which was a big bummer for me. If you don't know what Awana is, it's basically kid youth group. But we went, and we never stopped trusting God. Maybe just because I was young and I didn't understand all of it. I knew stuff was going on. I had constant stomach pains, and I didn't know what they were. Well, it turns out they were hunger pains, and I didn't realize that till I was 17? Maybe a little bit older, honestly. But it wasn't. Things happened. So, but God still took care of us, even despite all of this, despite all the flaws. So my mom had friends who would send nanner boxes. They were big banana boxes full of food, and would send them to us. And I remember we probably got about 4 or 5 of them at least. we got a good amount. My mom can correct me if I'm wrong or whatever, but I remember excitedly emptying them and be like, oh, we got more Nair Bonds. But I didn't realize this is what was going on. I didn't realize we didn't have food, but God was still taking care of us. He found the people. He found the resources. In 2005, when we said, when my parents didn't have money for Christmas presents, Santa, it was not my parents, brought us so many presents. It filled half of the dining room. And it wasn't like it was a very big dining room. I mean, I think it was about an average size dining room that we have, but it filled like a good amount of it. And we each probably had like 20 presents. My mom had some really nice perfume she got, my dad stuff, and we had handmade Barbie doll clothes, which I regret so much not treating those as good as I should have. And the same thing happened the next year. It's the same organization too, so thank you. I forget the name of the organization, but thank you. I don't think you realize the difference you made. In 2007, we had another Christmas. And this time it was by the people who were in our Bible study. So thank you, Jim and Terry, for that, because you mean the world to us. And I don't even think my sisters know that you guys gave the Christmas, but I know. And we had stuff through our life that we had to fight through. We went through legal battles. I have seen my sisters have many strokes and many seizures. My sister, when she was 14 years old, the one adopted from Russia, had to have emergency brain surgery. Well, not quite emergency. A month after her diagnosis. And no, 2 weeks. It was 2 weeks. And I could get in a whole other video about that by itself. And the thing that I learned was like just keeping strong faith. Because the thing was, I had just left a church camp. It was a weekend church camp called Avalanche, where I really grow a lot there. I miss going to Avalanche so much, guys. And I knew something was going on, and she was in the hospital because she had had something that looked like a stroke, but she had an angiogram or whatever, and then she was being taken to the hospital. No one was telling us anything. Well, she was diagnosed with moyamoya, which is where the blood vessels to your brain constrict. And because of that, she had many strokes, TIAs. Transvascular, I don't know actually. Don't quote me on that. I just know they're TIAs. And so they cause strokes, and it could eventually lead to a stroke, which is often how people find it, is when someone has a full-blown stroke. Kia Lassetto, the bearded woman from The Greatest Showman, she has that. That's how they found it with her. But my sister had before she did, or caught the diagnosis. So she had to have brain surgery. And it was a scary time, but let me tell you this. We still prayed, and we still sought God. And I'm not saying that to go, oh, look how great we are, but I don't want this story of my life that has been full of trials. There's stuff I'm not going to tell you, because the internet doesn't need to know all my business. But he got us through it. He got us through a lot. Like I said, legal battles. I can't get into it, but that's okay. My sister, imagine seeing your little sister on the ground, hand curling and go, because that's what I would see. I was 16 when that happened, which in retrospect, I was 16, same age as Ariel. I'm basically an adult. No, I was still a kid. And I learned, and I still memorize how to take care of people in strokes. I walk myself through in situations all the time. How do I help someone if they have a stroke? How do I help someone if they have a seizure? Because I haven't had as much experience with seizures as I had strokes. So what do I do? I want to make sure I can constantly help people. There is this trauma, and I do this for quotations because I refuse to say that I'm a trauma victim. I refuse. Because by grace, God has delivered me. And some of you may be like, oh, he seems so high and mighty, whatever. But no. It's because it's just it. We don't have to be a bondage to what the devil has done to us. And I refuse. Some days it's harder, but yeah. So, that was in 2015. And then we started the process of going to a Make-A-Wish trip. Because yes, a stroke can be life or death. And we did get the Make-A-Wish trip. And we went to Disney World. And if you know me, you can't see it right now. But I have a big Frozen poster. There's a Cinderella poster over here. There's a Belle poster over there. I'm trying to see if there's anything else. Baby Yoda over there. Grogu. I refuse to call him Grogu. There's Dumbo over there. You
can't see it. I'm a big Disney fanatic, so for me, it was a big deal. And we felt like, because this was the first family vacation we ever were able to have. We never could afford a family vacation. And we said that it felt like God was saying, well done, good and faithful servant. It was a reward for all the stuff we've been put through. From my dad's cancer, my dad having to go back in school, the loan we had to put out, the hunger pains, the countless amount of god-awful cars we had that broke down. I remember breaking down the side of Chicago. I remember that clearly. All of that, it was like God was saying thank you. Maybe that's not what he was doing. Maybe sometimes, you just treat your kids. But that's what it felt like. Life, that was in 2017. It's 2023 right now. Life has still not been all the greatest sometimes. I mean, like, right now, I'm going through stuff. I'm getting married soon. I'm in my last semester of college. I'm student teaching. Which, if you know, you know. I love theater. I love acting, and I got back into the swing of it right after COVID. Finally, the doors open, and now they had to shut again for me a little bit because I am student teaching, and all my time is going to student teaching. And it's pretty upsetting, 100%, that I am not in a show right now. Because that is where I belong. That's where I'm so happy. But it doesn't always mean there's a time and a season. I don't know how to put it. I know I was making a point, but I forgot my point. God has something for me. I don't know what. It was once prophesied over me that I would go farther than I ever dreamed, and I'm not saying this to boast or brag or anything like that, although you can have your own opinions about me. But, going through hard things. And so for me, I'm struggling not being on the stage. But I know in due time, this fall, I'm going to audition for one of my dream roles that I've had since I was like 4 or younger. And I can't say that I'm going to get it, but I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do it all for His glory. I'm not saying this to sound high or mighty. I keep saying this because that's what I feel like today has not allowed I don't want to say real Christians. What is the word I want? Today has not allowed Christianity to show. We have to constantly apologize for I have faith in God, but don't feel bad if you don't feel like this. But this is how I feel. But don't feel bad. No. This is the truth. For I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Christ. I have faith in Him because I've had to live it time and time and again. I've had to live in it. I got scammed out of money before. We've had it. I've had everything. But God keeps coming back. I auditioned for a show last year, and I keep talking about it because if you know me, this was my dream role, and I didn't even know it was my dream role. And so much went wrong with this show. So much. I don't think any of my friends who were in it were the biggest fan of it because of so much that happened, including with me. I was having constant asthma attacks. I feel bad for everyone. The panic and trauma I probably put on them. But there was still joy because I knew God gave it to me. And it was the happiest I'd been in so long. And that's the big thing is that's my testimony, is finding the good. Something good's coming out of it. And rain will make the flower grow. It's a line from Les Mis. I'm a big theater nerd. My dream role is Eponine. And rain will make the flower grow. Which is exactly like Romans 8:28 say. All things work together to those who love God. So I know it's a scatterbrained, but I knew I needed to make a testimony. Because I am going to have students looking up to me now. So if you're my student, know how much I love you. Know how much I want to show you God. It sucks I feel like I can't talk about Christ at school, but know that I'm praying over you constantly. Know the love I have for you. If you're not one of my students, know how much love I have for you and how badly I want to tell you about Jesus. And if I'm not doing a good job at it, Lord, forgive me. Because I want you to know the goodness of God. He's given me you, hasn't He? That's got to count for something. So, I don't know. I want to say so much, but I didn't make an outline or anything. everything turns out better. I had a terrible day yesterday. I was not feeling it. I just broke down crying. And now it's I'm so happy again. And it's not a bipolar thing. It's just sometimes God reminds me who he is. And he's able to use me. And he's using you too in ways you don't know. So if you feel like right now you're not being used and you're like, that's not fair, you're getting used. You're being used. You just don't always know it. Sometimes it's not always going, thus saith the Lord, blah, 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 blah. Or blah, blah, blah. Sometimes it's the things that you do. That means the world to you. But you're doing it. You're being used. And I pray you recognize that. I pray that you see what God sees in you. I pray that you learn to always turn to him when times are tough. Because they are tough, man. The world sucks right now. I pray you always go back to the Bible first. Always go back to the Bible first. I'm guilty of that. Man, I prefer a good sermon. I prefer teaching. I love learning. I love being taught to. I watch documentaries in my fun time. But I pray you always go back to the Bible. Because that tells you who God really is, not what man says God is. Don't even focus. God isn't this vindictive person. He's the perfect father. And I know I just told you to say, don't focus on what man tells you to say, but it's the truth. It's the truth. So I feel like I've made this video long enough, and I feel like I've said everything I need to say, but I could say so much more. So if you have any questions or want stories or anything, I'm happy to share it, but please, I want to tell you about the goodness of God. So I hope I succeeded in that. And please text me, email me, whatever it may be, however you contact me. Or contact someone you know about their story. Because they want to tell you too. So I'm signing out. Thank you for watching.